Welcome into Reviews of Ryan. Today on the channel, I'm going to be talking about the brand new horror film in theaters called The Black Phone. This film was directed by Scott Derrickson, and he's also done films like Doctor Strange, The Day the Earth Stood Still, Deliver Us from Evil, Sinister, and The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Before I dive into my thoughts on this review, if you like movie reviews and Blu-ray hauls, you're in the right spot. Hit the subscribe button, give the video a like, comment below your thoughts on this movie, and also turn on the notification bell so you never miss any review that I post. And now without further ado, let's dive into my thoughts on this brand new film. After being abducted by a child killer and locked in a soundproof basement, a 13-year-old boy starts receiving calls on a disconnected phone from the killer's previous victims. The film stars Mason Thames, Madeline McGraw, Ethan Hawke, Jeremy Davies, and E. Roger Mitchell. So going into Black Phone, I really had a lot of high hopes for this film. It got delayed a bunch of times and then kind of got put in this spot in the middle of summer, which I really didn't expect this movie to really be in a blockbuster kind of summer kind of deal because this movie didn't cost a lot to make. So it's just really interesting to see that they have this smaller film in a big blockbuster lineup. And with this director personally, I like his film Doctor Strange, it's okay, and Sinister was really the one that really moved me. I don't really like any of his other kind of films, but Sinister always really moved me. I just really remember leaving that theater feeling really scared. And most horror movies, when I watch them, I never really feel scared, or they don't really move me that much, or I don't really feel like it really lingers on to really keeping me, haunted in my dreams or feeling like, I wanted to sleep with the lights on. But Sinister always really had that effect on me, and I think that it just felt like it was really real in that movie. So going into The Black Phone, I had a lot of high hopes that this director was really going to make a really good film. So the film starts out in the late 70s, early 80s, and you have these different kids. They're talking about this guy named the Grabber, and all these different kids are going missing. And then meanwhile, you have a bunch of other kids. They're bullying other kids and beating them up, and they all kind of have potty mouths, and they really are just really violent kids. And then you also have kind of the feeling of the 80s style here, as when you get to the school, you see them in their different costumes that really make sense for the 80s, the 80s hairstyle, the 80s type of glasses. There's even a part where Finn is talking to one of his friends, and they're talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the one that was dropped in the 70s, and he's talking about watching it on TV. Finn is saying that his dad won't let him watch that, and it's too scary for him. And then it cuts to another scene where he's at home and he's on this box TV that his dad owns, and it has one of those channel changers where it's only like 5 channels. And yeah, it really feels like an 80s style here. And even the way that it's filmed, and I really like the intro. The intro really reminded me of Sinister, as it has that camcorder kind of footage like in Sinister. You learn about Finn's character, and you learn about his mother and what happened with his mother, and then he has a sister as well. And his father, you learn about him. He is a complete drunk. He's a loser. He beats his kids. He's not really nice to his kids. There's a really kind of disturbing scene where he beats his sister with a belt. It's kind of really hard to watch. There's that child abuse throughout this film. And really throughout this film, it's really filmed a lot during the daytime, as there is parts in this film when Finn is already abducted. And this is not a spoiler because, it's said in the synopsis and obviously in the trailer. But when he's kidnapped and he's in this basement of the Grabber, played by Ethan Hawke, the film really paints a really good lighting picture, as you have a lot of dark shadows painted with the light outside. But they did a really good job of making it really dark, so it feels like a really darker kind of feel as you're in this basement. It feels very filthy in this basement, and it reminded me of when I used to live up in North, and I had a basement myself. As living down here where I'm at now, there is no basement, so that was a good reminder of when I had a basement, of just feeling like the coldness in that basement. I just remember when I lived up north, when you had the winter time, it was always really cold, and I could just remember like the sounds of like the pipes and the grittiness, and you know how you just feel so cold and clammy in a basement setting like this. So I really felt that setting throughout this. And then you also see like the walls, they look really bloody looking, and they just did a really good job with the lighting and just really doing a really good job with the scenery, as a lot of the portion of this movie takes place in this basement. I also really did like Finn in this, is played by Mason Thames in this. I thought he did a really good job at his role. I have never seen him in any other films, but I thought he did really good here, and I really would be very interested to see him in other films, as I really think that he did a really good job with his acting here. I think all the acting in this film is done pretty well. I don't really have any nitpicks with any of the acting here. Now the story itself, it's kind of simplistic, and I'm not sure how people are really going to really react to this movie, because there's not a lot of story with this. I also thought the whole grabber story with Ethan Hawke, it's not really that much. You know, I could really talk a little bit about his character, but if I give you a little bit of details, I'm giving you the whole movie. So I'm going to be kind of quiet about talking about Ethan Hawke's character, but I will say that I didn't really care that much for his character. Throughout this film, he really is wearing the mask, I will say, so you don't really see his face really all that much in this film. And there really isn't a big mystery throughout this film to really behold. There are parts in this film where there is a lot of loud kind of sounds to make you have some jump scares in this. It feels a little bit cheap at times, but other times it feels kind of effective at times. But there was a little bit of balance of that. There isn't too much of it, I will say. I thought that the score in this was pretty creepy for the most part. I think the filming aspect is pretty good as well. I just think in general, though, the story, it's not that strong of a story. It's one of those films that I watched it and I was okay that I watched it, but I didn't feel wowed by this movie at all. I wasn't really caring too much about the writing of this and the development of the story of this. The other characters, especially the ones at school, they're pretty meaningless in this, and really it's just kind of filler in the beginning. It doesn't really add a whole bunch to the film. It just really shows the atmosphere of what the school's like and what Finn's, you know, life in school is like. And then of course, you know, showing the whole portion about his father and his family and such, but they don't really focus on those characters that much. Really, this really focuses on Finn's character and Ethan Hawke, and really nobody else in this film. So if you're looking for a really well-developed story and really well-developed characters, other than your main character Finn, you really don't get it here. And lastly, to wrap up a few more thoughts, I'd be lying if I said that this whole kind of 80s kind of vibe didn't remind me of like a Stranger Things kind of episode, or like the It kind of movie that they made a few years ago. I'd be lying if that setting didn't remind me of that. And walking out of the theater, as I saw this with my wife, we kind of talked about what this film really kind of meant to us, or what we really felt about this film. And my wife's words was this film was interesting. So take it from her that she thinks that this is interesting. For me, I thought it was okay film. I think in general for me, this film is a one-time watch. I'm glad I watched it, but I felt like there was so much hype for this film and just so much building. Even my wife said when she watched the trailer only once, she thought this film was going to be a lot more scary, and it really wasn't. And knowing with my wife, and she doesn't really watch a lot of horror movies, her saying that, just know going into this film, it's not really that scary of a film. And I think that if you think you're going to be really scared on this film, I don't really think you're going to really get that vibe. So my wife gave the score of this film a 3 out of 5. I'm going to give a score of this film a 2.5 out of 5. It's okay for me. I had a lot more higher expectations for this film. I really love the director when he did Sinister, and this film wasn't necessarily a letdown for me, but I wanted a lot more out of it. As I, said in my review, there were things I really did like about this film, but story and character development and just having a little bit more to really grab onto, I didn't really get it with this film, so it really didn't do it for me. So 2.5 out of 5 seems right. Let me know down in the comments, what did you think about this film? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Is it okay for you? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in my next review.